What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Shiv, and we're going to be looking over more cards from the mean streets of Gadgetzan. Now, some of them are Jade Golem, some of them are some other cool stuff, but fuck it, let's just get to it. First card we're going to talk about today is the Jade Chieftain. 7 mana for a 5/5 battlecry, summon a Jade Golem, give it taunt. Now, we've discussed previously that pretty much everything involving the Jade Golems operates at like a negative loss to begin with. So if you're trying to evaluate the value of a card simply based on, oh, it's this plus a 1/1, that's kind of a little misleading, alright? Especially in terms of the Jade Chieftain, because it's so expensive, the likelihood that you're going to get Jade Golems out earlier on is pretty damn good. So let's go over some scenarios here. So if you've gotten one Jade Golem out, obviously Jade Chieftain's going to come down as a 5/5, and you're going to get a 2/2 taunt with it. That's still pretty fucking bad, I'm not going to lie. It really is. I mean, it's basically break-even point right there. But if you get 3, it gets a little bit better. Then you're talking about a 5/5 and a 3/3. It's not extremely good, but it's not extremely bad either. Now, if you can get a whole bunch of these Jade Golems going, which it's appearing that Shaman might actually have a chance of doing, then you're looking at the possibility of having a 5/5 plus a 5/5 taunt for 7 mana, which isn't horribly bad. It really isn't horribly bad, but there's a whole bunch of new AoEs that basically say, okay, that's cool, but go fuck yourself. So that is something to consider. Is it going to be overly good? It's hard to really say. Against certain classes, it's not going to be that fucking impactful. But against other classes, that sort of build-up is going to be very difficult for them to deal with. So, yeah. We're basically coming back to the age of Light Bomb again, to where it's like, oh yeah, this seems like a really cool play, but Light Bomb exists. So, keep that in mind. Alright. Next up, we've got the Vermin Sensei, 5 mana, 4/5 battlecry, give a friendly beast +2/+2. I wanted to like this card. I really did want to like this card. And then I started thinking, well, aren't there already beast synergy minions out there? I was like, yeah. Are they seeing much play? No. Will this see much play? I actually have to say maybe on that. I really do, because this actually does something that already exists in the game, i.e. the Marquis of Sarge without the card draw. And personally, I started thinking of the validity of this card in that deck. You know, what would it serve here? And what I came up with is basically this gives value to, say, like a Jungle Panther in the deck, and it does give value to Stranglethorn Tiger because it allows more flexibility of the Marquis of Sarge. Because let's be honest, shit happens, and if your whole game plan is putting the Marquis of Sarge on the Stranglethorn Tiger to double down with Menagerie Warden, then that puts you in a very inflexible slot. Alright, now you open up a little bit more flexibility. The downside to this, however, is that deck's already got a lot of like 5s and 6s and 7s in it, so adding another 5 is really going to kind of bloat the mid to top end of the deck. So, will I see this as a 2 of in Beast Druid? Probably not. Will I see it as maybe a 1 of? Yeah, sure, why not? Because truth be told, having a 4/5 on the board is a little bit difficult for a lot of classes to deal with. And if it's already buffing up something that's in stealth, then that's going to be really, really good. Truth be told, turning a tiger into a damn near mini giant is fucking amazing. So, all in all, I think this card has some potential, but kind of have to wait and see on it. Alright, next up we have is the Gadgetzan Ferryman. I promised myself I wouldn't be overly harsh on Blizzard about certain cards. I did say that to myself repeatedly. I was going to be nice to them. I wasn't going to beat up on them. I did make that promise. Fuck it. This card is absolute fucking dumpster fire, trash tier, horrible. Alright, whenever people talk about cards in the new expansion, they always reference a term known as power creep. And a lot of people who talk about power creep generally don't know what the fuck they're talking about, sadly. Here's a prime example of negative power creep, i.e. it is a card that is worse than one that already exists and will continue to exist in the set. And what I'm talking about here is the Youthful Brewmaster. Youthful Brewmaster is a 2-mana 3/2 with no prerequisites of a combo in order to return a friendly minion to your hand. This is a 2-mana 2/3 with a prerequisite to return a friendly minion to your hand. So obviously this card is inferior to the Youthful Brewmaster, thus you're never really going to want to play this in any deck that's going to need that sort of ability. Instead, you're going to play the Youthful Brewmaster. So keep that in mind. I don't really want to put too much time and thought on this card because it's just fucking horrible. Alright, next up we've got is the Daring Reporter, 4 mana for a 3/3. Whenever your opponent draws a card, gain +1/+1. Okay, so there's a couple really cool things with this card. One, just playing it on curve, it'll automatically be a 4/4. Guaranteed. Now, if this is going into your opponent's turn 5, and they really wanted to play that Azure Drake, that now is really scary for them, because all of a sudden, this becomes a 5/5. Keep that in mind. This really does kind of fuck up cycle. And if you verse Druid and they really wanted to play that Nourish, guess what? Not gonna happen. Alright, this is kind of like anti-Nourish tech for all intents and purposes. But where this card probably shines the most, and this is something that a bunch of us over at the Innovative Podcast were talking about, is in Mill Rogue. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in Mill Rogue. If you throw in just a Conceal in Mill Rogue, which is something you generally don't see, but sure, why not? All of a sudden you get this cool scenario where you can start really fucking with your opponents hard, okay? We came up with a lot of scenarios where basically this ended up being like 14 and 16 and like just really nasty amounts. And with the addition of the ability of giving it stealth, gave it even more validity. One of the problems that we've consistently had with Mill Rogue decks is once you identify that you're playing up against Mill Rogue, your course of action was pretty fucking straightforward. Burn them before they waste all your cards. You want to basically play everything out of your hand as quickly as possible. Well, now, having a giant minion that could then suddenly punch to the face and kind of change around those curves and kind of accelerate your timeline is pretty damn important. Alright? It is pretty damn important. So yeah, we definitely like this card for that purpose right there. Plus, you know, anytime you can have fun with Mill Rogue, you should do it, because Mill Rogue is a fun deck. Alright, moving on to the next card. We have the Jade Claw. Okay, before we go into this card, when they first started, you know, prepping us for the whole Jade Lotus faction, they showed us a lot of the card art. And one of the arts that they showed us was this one. And I looked at that and I went, oh, it's a weapon. Now, a couple days later, we got a little introduction to the whole Jade Golems. And I went, oh man, if that is a weapon that continuously spawns Jade Golems every time you attack, similar to the Piranha Launcher, whatever class gets that is going to be broken as fuck. And then my mind instantly went to the worst case scenario of Shaman. It's like, if Shaman got that, holy shit, this game just changed dramatically. Like, Shaman will maintain their dominance as the #1 deck in the fucking world. And luckily, we didn't get that scenario. Thank God we didn't get that scenario. We got something else. Alright, so, to the card. 2 mana for a 2/2. Battlecry, summon a Jade Golem, overload 1. Now, this card serves a very important purpose for Shaman. You look at all the other Jade Lotus faction classes. Druid, Rogue, and they all basically have something in common. Rogue have 2 initiators for the whole Jade Golems that are low cost. They have the Swarmer and they have the Shuriken. Shuriken, however you pronounce that shit, I don't know. Alright, those are low cost options that are basically going to start the train rolling with the Jade Golem synergy. Here is the Shaman one. Alright, the other options they have specifically for their class is a 7 mana and a 4 mana spell. Okay, those are not good initiators. 2 mana, however, is a good initiator. And the fact that it's a weapon is also pretty damn impactful. And the fact that it has overload means, you know, Tunnel Trog. So let's go through the scenarios. Obviously, turn 1 Tunnel Trog, turn 2 into the Jade Claws, and then all of a sudden you have a tempoing weapon, you have a 2/3 and a 1/1 on the board, and your turn 3 is pretty much going to be spent playing down the Totem Golem, and all of a sudden you're now having a 3/3, a 3/4, and a 1/1. That's pretty damn fucking impactful. That's like that perfect curve scenario for what shamans are looking at going forward. Is that overly impactful? Fuck yeah, that's overly impactful. That's fucking game breaking in a lot of scenarios. However, comparing that concept now would be really, really painful. But moving forward in the meta, how effective that's going to be is going to be one of those wait and see scenarios. It really is going to be a wait and see scenario. But all in all, I think this card's actually pretty good. Now, I know a lot of people are going to sit here and go, yeah, but isn't Spirit Claws better? To some degree, yes, Spirit Claws is better, but Spirit Claws does not move you towards your agenda of developing a solid board of Jade Golems. This does. But Spirit Claws allows you to tempo the board and allow you to consistently keep putting up bigger minions and creating a board that's very difficult for most classes to deal with until the potions come out and basically wreck the shit out of it. So we'll have to kind of wait and see on it, but I definitely think the Jade Claws give a lot of validity to the whole Jade Golem and Shaman build. So definitely a card that people are going to play with. Alright, the next card and the final card we're going to talk about is the Shadow Sensei. Now, this is a 4 mana, 4/4 Battlecry, gives stealth minions +2/+2. Now, there are a few cards specifically that I want to highlight with this, and they're also in Rogue. The two that I really want to talk about are Shaku the Collector, the legendary that the Rogues got that everybody said was fucking horrible. They said it was trash. They said that I would never play with this fucking card. All of a sudden, now that card gets a little bit more value. Shaku is a 3 mana, 2/3 stealth. Whenever this attacks, add a random card to your hand from your opponent's class. Well, congratulations, following curve logic, that's now a Yeti. Alright, that turns into a Yeti. Now, that's actually pretty damn good, and the possibility of now getting multiple draws off of it has increased, which is something, let's be honest, is the only thing that would make that card even viable. Turning it into a Yeti and getting multiple value off of it. Alright? Now, the next card we're going to talk about is the Lotus Assassin. Basically, the Tempo Rogue's dream card. 5 mana, stealth. Whenever this attacks and kills a minion, gains stealth. Like, everybody I know who was really fond of Tempo Rogue back in the day saw this card and went, oh, finally, we're coming back. Yes, let's do this. Well, now, Shadow Sensei makes a lot of sense with that, alright? Suddenly, your 5 mana card just became a 7/7. Which pretty much is going to guarantee it's going to go back into stealth. Now, just because it's going back into stealth doesn't mean shit. AoE exists, guys. It really does. It's going to be not the hardest thing in the world to take that thing out. So yeah, I definitely think Shadow Sensei is going to do wonders within Rogue. But it's not just the Rogue cards that are going to get some benefit out of this either. Alright, so the next card we're going to talk about is the Jungle Panther. Again, curve logic applying here. So you're talking about a 4/2 that suddenly becomes a 6/4. That's hugely impactful. So if you want to go for a hyper-aggressive deck, bang, there you go. A 6/4 plus a 4/4 on the board on turn 4 is fucking disgusting, guys. That is disgusting. People are going to have to trade most of their board just to deal with that, and you're probably still going to be stuck with a 4/4 on your side of the board. True fact. And the other one is obviously Stranglethorn Tiger. So now, what this actually means is we could get away with having a pure stealth Rogue deck and get some huge value off of it. It's really hard to try to control a board when you can't interact with it. Alright? Think about that, guys. Think about that. So, I definitely like this. I think this is going to add some huge value. And I can't wait to see some of the builds that are going to come out. But personally, I think that this is going to be a power card. I think this card is definitely going to enable some really cool power synergies within Rogue. Alright, it definitely has some possibilities. So, yeah, that's going to be all for the review. Let me know down in the comment section, what do you think of some of these cards? What are your favorites? What are your worst? Do you agree that the Gadgetzan Vermin is absolute trash tier? Let me know. And as always, guys, if you like these videos, please like, subscribe, leave me some love. It really does help support the channel as well as me. Until next time, this is Shiv saying, stay safe, have fun. May R and Jesus bless you. Peace.